Welcome to the Randy Doyle Podcast. Chris, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. I'm doing pretty good.
We got a special guest we'll get in here in just a second. And before then, wow, my mouth hurts.
Did you have a little work done yesterday?
I had a little work done,
Yeah.
Eddie, Chris got tired of me, smacked me in my mouth, and I lost a tooth. Just kidding. But yeah, I had some dental work done yesterday, and it feels good today. But last night was interesting. So hey, I've got a buddy of mine, Eddie, on today that we're gonna go in. Eddie and I met. We'll go into this a little deeper here in a bit, but it's been a bit now, and when I met him, I knew he was a special dude. But then as I started, social media, I don't know I think social media was out, but it wasn't a really big thing when we met. But then as I started watching his career, I saw who this guy was and what he was doing. And not only was he a good guy, but damn, dude's got talent. So we're gonna talk about that and just go into that a little bit. But okay, Chris, what's on your shirt? Got to ask. This is a new one, isn't it?
The shirt?
Yeah.
I think I've had this one on before, but I wore this one for Eddie today. Last week I had a Ferrari. It's an F40 on my shirt. So this week it's a 62 GTO.
Damn.
So,
man,
it's
great car.
But I think I've had it on before. So yeah. My selection of Ferrari attire is limited.
Right. Yeah. So is mine. I got to get my shirts. I ordered a lot of cool ones just for you because Chris can be a little bashful. So I ordered shirts that have different things on them just to get his attention. But we've had a busy. We've been slammed. I'm not complaining, but we've been slammed like a lot of people. And last week we had our 5-day training. Amazing class. I mean, amazing class. Amazing people, amazing relationships sealed in. Chris came up on Thursday. And here's the class right here. We had two interns.
Check these guys out.
Yeah, we had two interns, so each one on the end. So we had Steve and Luis that interned, and then we had Josh, Jeremy, Samantha, Edward. This guy right here in the blue. I'm going to point to it. You guys can see.
He's wearing the flex hat.
Yeah, flex hat. 16 years old, Eddie.
Wow.
16 years old. Yeah. And, great family. And his dad, get this, his dad wants to go into business, and he honors his kids. They're immigrants, and they came here, and his dad said, hey, I would rather you get into something you really love at an early age, and I'll wait. And his dad sent his son instead of himself.
Wow.
Is that cool or what?
Very cool.
I want to tell you, the kid just hung with us like he was 30 years old, man. I mean, he put up with us. We were a lot more immature than he was, having fun. But he went with the joking, and he did a great job. And he listened to every single thing we said to do. He did, to the 10th. It's pretty amazing. So, and the guys in the class really stood up. As Josh runs a big operation in the Midwest. Jeremy. Military guy that's looking at the end picture of when his military career comes to a conclusion. He loves cars and detailing. Samantha, firefighter, coming into detailing, and then Edward, this a teenager, and just man, he's got his stuff together. I mean, it was really and then our interns, Steve's up in Idaho, in Boise, Idaho. He's building a big facility right now. Luis, I've just watched him really change his entire life over the last year. His Profit Points. He came to us training about a year ago. And they just brought such a cool element to the class, as having two interns. It was, our interns are awesome, but to help them at that level, it was pretty amazing week.
Yep.
Sounds like it.
So, hey, let's pay some bills. We want to thank P&S for taking and sponsoring it and being behind us. They always are. So P&S, Randy Doyle, Double Black Products, reach out, thank them. So Chris, let's go into Eddie's bio. He's got quite the bio.
Yeah. So, Eddie's been here, I'm pulling up my notes real quick. So Eddie's been in the detailing business for well over 25 years. It sounded like he got into it because his father did body work and restoration work out in Miami, and that kind of led Eddie to where he's at now. But his detailing business, Eddie, actually help me pronounce your last name.
Fusa.
All right. So Fusa is auto detailing. It's a mobile service based out of Fort Lauderdale, and Eddie has become kind of a Ferrari specialist. He's worked hard to build relationships with collectors and stuff like that, and he's got a focus on detailing, preserving, and restoring Ferraris. So
Yeah,
did I nail it?
You nailed it.
So let me share from a personal standpoint. So Eddie and I were involved, Eddie was involved with a leather product company that made leather products, and we are always looking for premier, leather products, right? So many years ago, we lined up with this company, and they put us together with Eddie, and we had met at a show, and we'd met at a couple different spots. But this guy was like, the things that he had done at reconditioning leather in these vintage Ferraris was mind blowing, So when I first met him, I thought, oh wow, that's where he makes a specialty. Then I started following him to where I started seeing a lot of the paint correction he does, and really recovery. I mean, he's taken some cars and brought them back, and just they've been able to recover off of his efforts. He's a heck of a guy. Now, Chris, this is something you don't know. There's a small group, and every morning on Facebook Messenger, and it's the only message I read every single day, and every single one that comes through. Eddie sends us a scripture, and I'll tell you, Eddie, there's the things I haven't told you is that there's days like Monday we had a tough day, and I'm going to go into that story. It wasn't funny. I won't do it on the podcast, but what lighted me up was two things: is that stepping in a rat trap. Yeah, it's quite, yeah. And then Eddie's it was the right message at the right time when I needed that scripture. And so there's a small group he sends it out to. He's religious about it, and it makes a huge impact. So the guy's got a massive heart, and I really enjoy his company and who he is, and he's a true professional, and he knows more about detailing than most people could ever dream, of knowing. And he's an honorable guy. So let's jump into it. So Eddie, introduce yourself real quick. Just tell us something about yourself.
Well, like Chris said, I started the detailing business at least 25 years ago, where I mentioned that to Chris when I wrote to him that a lot of people didn't know that I was a medic EMT back in the days. I worked in Miami, and due to an incident where we were going to a 911 call, and our ambulance got hit, and I got hurt, and it kind of ended my career. I was there like almost 6 years, and I was not able to return back because there is a protocol when it comes to lifting people and patients and backboards and all that. And I had to change careers. And that was, for me, it was like, oh my God, all this time, effort. I loved what I did, being with people, helping people at the worst moments, saved a lot of lives, a lot of deliveries. You can imagine, did a lot of stuff. And I did a lot of volunteer work. As soon as I got my EMT's license, I became a state certified and national certified. That was important. You could be an EMT and work for the state, but you had to pass a test, which was a national test. That's the way it worked. So back then we had Hurricane Andrew, it hit, and I wasn't working as of yet as an attendant or so in the EMS. And I started working volunteering at the hospital in the trauma center. And they put me in this guy there. I showed them my license. I said, look, I'm this. They go, okay, perfect. We need you. So they put me right at the entrance of the hospital. And I said, oh my God, I've never really worked in this. So they just threw me out there with another nurse. And man, we were doing all kinds of stuff, trauma, triage, and all this stuff. And I was like, wow. And I really liked it. And from there on, eventually I got hired. And I loved every second of it. You know, I saw people at their worst moments, at their best moments. You know, being with people when they took their last breath. You know, being with an elderly person that their kids are waiting at the hospital and, you know, their loved one dies. Things like that, you know, that you could pray with them, at least, you know, they're going to go. And, you know, you're the only one in there that can hold their hand. And, you know, at least in my case, you know, do whatever I can to give them comfort as much as possible. So I love that. And then I worked for our units. We took on a private transportation for the Miami Children's Hospital. We were a unit specialized to transport like cancer patients for kids. And it was very emotional. I mean, it was not everybody wanted to do that because, I mean, some of these kids would die. And it was pretty cool that parents would call our station and say, we want Eddie to be there, you know, because our kid loves him. That was cool. And then you would get a letter, you know, which that was the worst part, you know, the parents writing to me, thank you for everything you did for my son or daughter or whatever. She passed on. That was like, oof, it was horrible. You know, get these little letters and it's like, whoa, that's pretty bad. But again, jumping forward, I lost that job, and it took a little while before I kind of like, I was almost like not that I was a realtor, I worked for a real estate company. And I kind of started thinking through what's next, what do I want to do? And that's when it dawned on me that I said, why don't I get into cars? And it was kind of like a setback for me at the time because I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, washing cars. Somebody has suggested, why don't you do mobile car washing? And it was kind of like an insult to me at the time. You know, I was like, oh man, coming from this to this. So it kind of like, you know, played in my mind. And where I worked, it's where everything really started. It was interesting because where I worked, it was an amazing community. It was just building up, it was getting ready to blow up as far as you had, you know, like $1 million homes, yet the least expensive home was probably in the 300,000. Now, remember, this is way back, 20 something years. So now these homes are like crazy expensive. But the cool part about it was that all of a sudden celebrities started moving into specific area within that community. And I was working there, and then I decided, well, I'm going to start mobile car washing. And the employees said, oh yeah, wash my car, this and that. And I would hand wax, wash, that kind of stuff. I'm just learning one hand with one hose, the other hand holding a bucket, that kind of thing, throwing stuff in the back seat of my truck, or actually my car at the time. And I started doing this in this community. And then all of a sudden, some celebrity came up to me, a famous baseball player that had just bought a house, and he was renting nearby. And he said, hey man, I see you do car washing. Can you stop by my house either today or tomorrow? And, you know, I got like 3, 4, or 5 cars. Like, yeah, sure. Went over there and then met him. He played at the time for the Houston Astros and started doing his cars. Everything went well. And then everyone going up and down that block, residents, right, would always stop. Oh, you do mobile car wash. Oh, can you take my name? When can you come by? So now I start getting a lot of attention from the community. And one thing led to another. Then the baseball player introduces me to friends of his from the Chicago Cubs, from the Florida Marlins, and this and that. And before I knew it, I was involved with a huge entourage of professional ball players, football players, basketball players. And I was like, whoa. Now I'm going to all these places, you know, and it was pretty cool. Then I started just getting better at it. And mind you, as you know, I was scratching my head all the time saying, man, you know, how can I make this better? I was kind of getting like the same thing over and over, wash, wax, little polishing here and there. But yeah, not really using as much machines, you know, even though I had experience with machines, but it wasn't a big deal. Clients weren't really looking at the car, go, oh, my car is full of swirls. can you fix that? That wasn't their thing. Their thing was, can you just wash and wax it? And in the back of their mind, they're thinking, can you just protect my car and keep it clean? That's it. And I would be very good at that and try to find the best products. But of course, I had no internet. I had no computers. I had none of that. So I would go to Barnes & Noble and buy books. And I still have the books. And these books were like 25 years old. And I would sit there kind of like reading these books, the black and white pictures and this. And what is a paint meter? A paint meter back then. And obviously, I couldn't afford that. It was like a couple $1,000s just for a paint meter. And not to say that now they have more sophisticated ones, but you can still buy a paint meter nowadays for, $100, $200, $300 to get you through, right? You would go fancier, but back then I couldn't justify, doing a $150 detail or $200, $300, whatever. Can't afford that. So I said, man, I got to make this more interesting. And I started really dialing in on the books and reading. And I said, well, I really have to dive in deep into making a difference with paints. And that's how I started with the paints. And as soon as I started using my machines and the knowledge I had and the little knowledge I had of products out there, because a lot of the products that were out there, honestly, I would have to go by body shops to see what they were using. Because you would think, well, there's really no detailing shops around. So I had to find out what was being used at their level to see if that stuff worked.
Yeah, because you go back that many years ago, 25 years ago. Hey, we didn't have forums. A lot of people don't.
Right.
There's a generation of detailers that we didn't. We're kind of the first. We're the first generation of detailers to come up through that was old school, but all of a sudden new school had to blend into it. And so you couldn't go on and do all this research. And there's a lot of small local brands. Some were good, some weren't. I mean, so it was a real challenge with that. Now, it's ironic. I'm going to bring something up completely different, change your glide path for a second, is that you're around all these baseball players, athletes, but you yourself in the last several years, you decided to make a health choice in your life.
Yeah.
So tell us, so you're working hard, and then I'm going to go back into the business and bring you up to more modern day times. So you're working hard. I meet you, and then you made a decision to do something that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I decided to start eating a lot of organic food, but I stayed away from a lot of other stuff. Like I don't eat red meat, and that's just a choice, not because I'm against eating red meat or anything like that. I decided just to eat more healthier, barbecuing more stuff, chicken, stuff like that, more vegetables, and just being very picky in what I put in my body. Very picky. And obviously fruits. I've not tasted a soda or a beer, for example, in more than 3 years and things like that. Not that I've never had urgency, thank God, that I've never to want to drink alcohol. I was just never drawn to it. And but anyway, I know it could get you a big belly, right? In some cases, you do it a lot. But other than that, Cubans in general, the Latin people, we like to eat, very greasy food, right? And fried foods, because that's where we're brought up. Mom and dad are cooking, what they call in Spanish, bistecs, which is steaks, breaded, fried, and rice and beans and pork.
So how much weight did you take off?
It was about 60 pounds that I took off. About 60.
I remember seeing you, and I saw you at the next event.
Yeah.
And I saw you at the next event, and it just kept. You kept just getting fitter and leaner, and it was amazing. Now, what did that do for your career as getting healthy? Did you notice a difference when you were working?
A lot of energy, more energy, for sure. Lots of energy. And again, I don't even drink. I've never drank energy drinks. I don't like any of that stuff. But I had natural energy. So when I go to work, I just take a cooler and just take some chicken slices, organic chicken slices, and water, and perhaps a few fruits here and there, and that's it. I don't go out to eat. As a matter of fact, I don't even eat in restaurants at all. My family does, but I don't. I choose not to eat in any restaurants unless I know for a fact they're organic, and then I'll pick and choose what I feel that I should be eating to keep me healthy. And but it made a big difference in my performance.
Absolutely.
As far as, I wasn't as tired. As a matter of fact, I would get home and I'd still be awake. It was hard to fall asleep. I was like wired constantly. So I find myself at 2 a.m. still awake.
Did you find that it at all made a difference in the people you met and the relationships you built too? On that side, were they, did they change anything there?
They were just impressed. They were like, how'd you do this? How in the world did you, lose all this weight? And I didn't even exercise, not one time. I mean, my exercise basically was just hustling.
Yeah, work.
That's about it. Work. I mean, I never lifted anything, weights, didn't go to the gym. I don't have time to go to the gym. I mean, I have to get to somebody's house. I'm traveling, so I got to move around.
So let's go back. Let's talk about the first Ferrari. When did you realize that, hey, I could kind of make a niche out of this? Was there a time where you just realized, man, I'm doing Ferraris? Take us to that point and kind of quickly explain how'd you do that? And then maybe somebody that wants to kind of has that idea of making a niche. Maybe it's a truck, market in their market. It might not be Ferraris, but take us back there and kind of explain that process.
Well, people have asked me that kind of question in different ways, and I always bring it to the same answer. And I said, I always wanted to do something with if I was going to work in the field that I was going to work in, it's like specializing as a doctor. I want to be a neurosurgeon, a cardiovascular surgeon, whatever. I said, I want to work on a specialty of a certain car and learn as much as I can about that car. So this way, perhaps in the future, people will come to me and say, hey, you've worked so much on these cars. Can you work on my car? And what happened was that I had the opportunity with one person that showed me their car. I remember back then it was like a 308, which is the Magnum PI car. Mm-hmm. And then from there, the 328s, 348s. And people, honestly, the 308 was one of the least expensive Ferraris you could probably own at the time. I mean, you could buy a Ferrari. I was being offered those cars at the time for like $20,000. I mean, that's how much you can buy one of those. The problem with that was that in that time frame, people were not taking care. Most people would not take care of those cars because of the price, what it would cost to mechanically keep them up. And I knew how much it would cost. And I said, So I started doing things to the cars to kind of like cosmetically to give the car hope and then to open the customer's eyes and say, wow, I can't believe you've done all this without even painting the car. You've done this to the interior, to the engine, this and that. And that kind of took off and it got me in the door to meet other people with Ferraris. And then I started getting into another era. I always love niches that I can do, and I think that it'll attract people. And what I mean by that, some auto manufacturers, Ferrari had started with cars like the 348s that I'm sure a lot of detailers will know this, or you guys seen this, because it happens to a lot of cars, not just Ferrari, Mercedes. I've seen them in BMWs, Hondas. I've seen them in a lot of cars. The plastic parts, they get sticky.
Yeah.
Well, so one guy once, a client said to me, hey man, do you think you can restore this? Because what this costs to replace, it's mind-boggling, to replace all these parts in the car. And I said, yeah, man, that's not a big deal. He goes, really? I go, just take it all out, give them to me, give me a couple of days to figure this out, and I'll restore them. Well, I figured it out. And as a matter of fact, I was so into it that I went to the school of SEM. Remember, the SEM school? Mm-hmm. Well, it's not a school. SEM is a company that makes painting products and all that. So I took a trip up there, and I remember taking a Ferrari part with me, and I said, I got to ask these people what paint, what kind of material this is, because I really want to dial it in. And that helped me kind of get knowledge of products to use and how to clean them and what paints to use. Once I started doing that, I was getting tons of boxes from all over the country that I remember my wife saying, are you going to stop detailing or are you going to start doing this? Because some of these boxes had like 30, 40, 50 parts in them. Because I learned to master how to restore them, because any little part could cost, depending what it was, $300, $400, $500. And the problem was that it could go back to, because it's a paint known as soft feel paint.
Mm-hmm.
You feel it, it's kind of soft. And the problem with that, through time, they just kind of like get sticky. Yeah. So I mastered that. And then all of a sudden, a lot of people on Ferrari Chat, which is a community of Ferrari owners, they started reaching out to me, mechanic shops, this and that. Oh, I know Eddie. You know, mind you, this is 20 something years ago. You know, this is like, nobody really even thought of as much to restore that. And one thing led to another in different aspects of the car itself. And I started learning about undercarriages and zinc plating, CAD plating, and wax undercoatings for that era, and which that was a big deal. And I said, I got to do this because nobody's doing it. No one. And my clients are saying, can you do it? Yeah, I can do it. And they saw the results, and I just kept getting more and more cars. The more cars that would come in, the better I would get at it.
You know, you mentioned something really, you know, I've got what I call my 3 pillars, you know, and one of them is relationships. And so you've worked with mechanics and upholstery shops and fabricators, even historians. You know, how, in your mind, how important is it to build those kind of relationships up within your community? And it really spreads. It could go, in your case, it went nationally, internationally. But how important are those relationships?
Oh my goodness! Without them, let's just say you're just gonna keep doing what you're doing, but you're not gonna. I don't think that you would get as much attention in a specific area. Mm-hmm. Like I said earlier, I wanted to be known in a specialty. That new people that own those kind of cars would hire me, not only because of being a detailer, but also a person that can keep an eye on every aspect of the car and see what's OEM and what's not, because that's what people would want. They wanted to know, is this clamp on this hose original? And I would get along with my mechanic and say, hey, is this original? And I would learn from them. Then I would get together with a historian and start to get together. When I say together, literally going in front of a car and learning from the historian things from the car. Is it original? Is it not? And you kind of take notes of that and you go, okay, let me remember that.
People that don't know, when you come into that level of car, that's massively important. It's massively important. You know, our friend Gordon McCall in up in Monterey, you know, he can look at, matter of fact, we walked into a building, this wasn't too long ago, and there was a knockoff Cobra. And the second, I'm not telling you, the second we walked in, he goes, wow, that company really got the windshield raking completely wrong. I mean, I hadn't even looked at the car. The last thing I would have looked at was the raking on the windshield, the angle. But man, it just stood out so much to him. And literally, he's like, God, can you believe that? And I was like, no. And I went online and I started looking at the original one. And then when I looked at a picture, I was like, oh, damn, he's right. I didn't know the difference. Yeah. But you know what? Now I look at Cobras and I'm like, oh my God, that raking's so off. It's just so now tell me about DPR. That's something that you work with. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so DPR came to me as the years went by, and you know, the details of the car were important. You know, that's why I thought the D was the details. You know, the details of the car, the disassembly of the car, and the discovery of the car, discovering the car. So basically, when I'm hired to work, like right now, I'm on a big project with an old Ferrari from the 60s. I do just that. I do a discovery. I look at all thousands of pictures that I have on my portfolio, and I start dialing in to see. We know that this car is going to end up next year at a major event, which is the Cavallino event. So as of already, I've started to do stuff to the car, and I got to dial in the correct OEM. And that's the details. And then the P, I said, well, now I got to get involved in the preservation part of it. And for some guys, preservation can mean many things. But when you're dealing with unique cars that some owners really have no clue about how it should look or how it did look, is two different things, because people can change things along the way. And when you really bring in, again, talking about the kind of connections that have a historian and say, hey, listen, take a look at this. Oh, no, that's a knockoff. The judges are going to see that that's incorrect. So the preservation of something is where we get something and I look at it and I say, okay, I got to make a decision for the best interest, not only of the client, but of the car, preserve the history of that car, how it looked. And there could be a lot of plating issues. And you got to kind of like have the ability to say, should I or should I not, when to do it and when not to do it. Mm-hmm. And here's why. Because sometimes plated things in cars or painted parts in cars, some people will just grab a paint bomb, a can, and they black things out, just kind of like to make it go away, out of sight, out of mind. Or they get some sprays and they spray in their stuff to make everything look shiny and pretty and all that. Well, that doesn't work at least with what I do. And what I do is I try to make everything come together. So like if I'm working on plating on a car, I'm looking at, okay, how can I arrange this so that when a judge or someone looks into the car, everything looks correct? I can't just, I could take it to my plating company and have this part plated and it looks perfect, beautiful. The problem is, what about everything around it? Are you going to plate everything? Now it becomes a problem because then everything looks too new. So sometimes you can do a lot of things that I've learned that, hey man, I found a clamp way down here, never messed with, perfect condition. I'm going to clean it and bring it up here. And then get this part and just kind of relocate it because it's the same exact part and put it down here. And if I want, I can redo that part because it's not visual. They can't see it. So there's things like that. I have to do the preservation part where I preserve and have a lot of patience and do precise treatments to everything with a lot of knowledge and with a lot of people around me overseeing this as well, just to make sure that, okay, we all agree on the same thing here, right? Oh, yeah, it looks perfect like that. And that's helped me win a lot of credibility. And then the restoration part, which is the R, the DP, the R, it includes like a lot of hardware, again, going back, should I or should I not? Should I restore this or should I not? Same thing with the interiors. Should I dye this leather or should I not dye this leather? And I'll tell you right now that in the industry that I'm in, because some of the guys that have these very expensive Ferraris, they're always kind of like edgy about when you just say the word, we got to dye this. They're like, no, I want to keep it original. I go, oh, wait a second, time out. The factory didn't give you a piece of saddle without paint on it. You're not doing, you just can't show up at a car show and say, you could say it, but it's not going to look good. The seat's already missing, a ton of dye everywhere. So either you let it continue to go that route till you put a hole right through the saddle, and then what? You can't say, you can say, it's not original. It's not original. Your seats do not come from a manufacturer without dye, with holes in it. And even if you had a pair of shoes, but the shoe costs you $1,000, but it has a hole in the bottom where it's starting to, you don't throw away the shoe. You go to a shoe repair and they put a new sole. That's what they do. Or they dye the leather a little bit. And I said, look,
you hang out with a different level of client because I don't have $1,000 shoes.
Yeah, right.
I got $1,000 ski boots.
Yeah,
not
there you
shoes. Yeah, that's you know, a lot of people don't know that. I mean, I've even gone to clients. You know, we've done a lot of what you do with Ferraris, we do with aircraft, right? We've done it
Right.
for 30 years. And a lot of people on these collector aircraft, you know, there's some aircraft you work with where that original patina, you don't want to screw with it. But then again, like in the seat side of things, man, make it look good. It's still the original seats. You're just going to make it look factory correct, you know? And a lot of detailers don't get that, or they want to remove patina from paint or
Right.
from, you know, they want to take stainless and polish it out where that was never polished out,
That is correct.
you know? And you know, you got to look at the long-term life of that vehicle. It's going to, a lot of these vehicles are going to go on way after our time, you know, and you never know what's going to become valuable, you know? You just don't, you see cars now. I mean, back when I was young, a Porsche 912 RS,
Yeah.
well, a 912 was cool. A 912 RS was only a little bit cooler.
Yeah.
And it was only a little bit more. But if you can find a Porsche 912 RS right now, Chris, what are those things going for? You know, in good shape.
Oh, well, I think Porsches in general have gone through the roof since then.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, our old Boxster S over here that we've had for 7 years is tripled in price. You know, practically. You know,
Yeah,
it's
even the little 914s, you got to you got to save up your pennies for these days.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I love that. And you know what I love, Eddie, what you've done is you did what I think you're in the right market for is you just created your niche, and you just created such an opportunity for you and your family. And it's pretty amazing. So let's take away some, let's do a little break real quick. Some takeaways. He's brought to you by Flex, and check out some of the Flex. We've got amazing tools. Matter of fact, I'm going to take you guys for a little tour. I'm going to pick up my computer, but Eddie, you got to stay with us. So this is probably something that I'm most impressed with. This is their new vacuum cleaner that's battery powered. The thing's just unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. They've got a work box now that's here. You come over and there's the vacuum again, but new lighting systems. You know, we use a lot of power drills for cleaning windows and so forth. And it's brushless products. And it's pretty amazing of what they've done. So
those little vacuums are super cool. Like when we were at McCall's, just touching up cars in the morning for the car show.
Yeah.
It's awesome to have that battery powered vacuum. Just, do a quick cleanup of some of the stuff on the floor mats and that kind of thing. I mean, they're not going to be great for detailing a whole car.
No,
but for car show prep and touch ups, they're awesome.
Absolutely. And then we want to thank this is TrueView, and so this is our new ready to use retail version. It's an amazing glass cleaner. We came out with this. This was Sydney pushing us. She said, "Man, this would really do good for do-it-yourselfers, or if you're going to a car show or something like that. This is a great product. This is our new labeling and so forth. Bob did a great job on the design. It's pretty cool. We really like it. So we want to thank both of them for doing that. So, all right. So Chris, you've got now. Okay. So Eddie, you don't know this. Well, you probably do now. Chris, I told him when we were talking on all the ramp up for the program that he was going to have to geek out with you on Ferraris.
Okay.
Is that I'm a Ferrari fan, but I don't know a lot about Ferraris. Where Chris and you can geek out together. I mean, he's got a damn shirt with a Ferrari on it,
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, I don't know as much as Eddie does.
No, but enough. Let's go in. This is going to be kind of the fun part. So,
but Eddie, I wanted to show off real quick a little bit. I'm pulling up a picture here. So when we were in Monterey a couple weeks ago, this is Doug Cunningham, but he and I got to go on a special little field trip while we were there and go take care of one of his clients' cars. He's on the East Coast. But his client shipped out to Monterey that week. It was a 1964 GTO.
Beautiful.
And I don't know enough. I don't have a better picture of it, unfortunately, to show you the whole car. But it was just finished. The restoration was just finished. and we were just there to tidy it up before it went to Pebble Beach. And we were told not to remove the black exhaust marks from the bottom, underneath the doors. The owner wanted to leave those there to give it a little bit of almost patina, I guess, since it was really fresh. So he wanted it to not look quite as fresh. But anyway, it was pretty cool to work on. I don't know. I was told it was one of like 3 or 4 that were like this. When I tried to ask what the value might be, I wasn't given a number, but I was kind of told to expect north of $50 million.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
But anyway, it was pretty cool. That's the most expensive car I've ever worked on. And
Okay.
all I did was I took that battery powered vacuum. I did the inside, vacuumed it out, made sure there wasn't a speck of dust on it, and I let Doug take care of the outside. So
Beautiful.
but anyway, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But let me stop that real quick.
Hey, Doug, you'd love Doug. Doug's up in the Hamptons, and he works on a lot of. He's like you. He's very knowledgeable, in the Ferrari arena.
Yeah.
And he works on some amazing cars that are just, unbelievable. The value is unbelievable. The car is unbelievable. The looks of the car is unbelievable. But yeah, you guys could totally geek out together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you have a favorite Ferrari that you've worked on, or just in general?
Favorite. Well, favorites. I like the art of looking at a car and see more of the actual natural hands-on workmanship, the design of a car, other than just machines and robotics making stuff and things like that. So I have to show more favor towards the early cars.
Yeah.
Because the early cars to me was really a true passion. The guys with hammers and, and fire and making steel bend. And to me, that was amazing. That's an amazing craft. And I know it's going to sound kind of like, are you really serious? But when you look at cars like the 308, that kind of like got things interesting enough to get people that are very wealthy today. And you ask them, what's your first Ferrari? They're most likely to say, oh, I had a 308. And of course, they don't have that no more. Now they have cars that are worth millions. But it all started somewhere from there. But, I started liking like the Dinos, the Daytonas, the F40s, the 288 GTOs. All those cars have a unique line to it. And they're just so much craftsmanship, the way that it was built. When you look at these cars, firsthand, you look them up close and, you see certain things done. It's totally different than what I see today in modern cars. And it's just amazing how they're still running, which is unbelievable. There I am. So yeah, like I had just done those for Cavallino, and again, the 288, the F40, those are amazing cars. I mean, if you've never worked on them, it's hard to see from a picture, but when you get inside these cars, or you look at the engines, you look at the undercarriages, just the way it's built, it's mind-boggling. The way that, time was like very advanced for itself, like how these guys were thinking, the designers and the builders for such cars that are loved so much throughout the world. These are icons. I mean, these cars are worth millions and millions. I mean, that F40 is worth, $3 million. That 288 GTO is probably about, again, $3.5, $4, $5 million, depends.
Yep.
I mean, these are cars that what's crazier is I had cars like this offered to me to sell to clients back 20-something years ago. So I had F40s going for about $320,000, $340,000, which was a lot of money, but nowhere near. And when you come to think about a 288 GTO, you would never think that was worth even $100,000, back then. You'd be like, no, that car will never be $3 million, $4 million. Who would be thinking that? And I would tell my clients even back then, I said, hey, hold on to your F40. That car's going to be worth a lot of money someday. Or your 288, or, your F50. And F50 now is about $5 million.
Check this out, Eddie. I got a funny story to tell you. This guy walked into our shop. This was many years ago. Came walking in this is in Sun Valley, Idaho. And he pulls up in a ranch truck in an old Ford long bed. A lot of patina going on with this truck, right? There was more patina than there was paint. And comes out and he's kind of straggly looking and starts talking cars with me. And I'm always polite to people, but in the back of my mind, I am thinking, man, this guy's he doesn't have two pennies to rub together. And I mean, am I wasting my time? But all of a sudden he started talking about cars and you could tell he knew something about cars. So we sat there for about a half an hour. We had a great discussion and he left. And I was like, hey, it was a cool experience. Next day, the old ranch truck pulls back up. He goes, hey, you want to follow me over to my old barn? I want to show you a couple cars. I might have a little bit of work to do. I said, yeah. So we're going over there. We pull up. There's this dilapidated, old wood barn sitting there. And I'm like, oh, man, what have I got myself into? We pull up. Well, then when we pull up front, there's a European-style pea gravel driveway that is perfectly laid out. And I went, okay, that driveway is worth more than the barn. And then he pulls up and he opens the barn doors. And behind the barn doors is a bunker. A concrete and metal bunker. And I went, uh-oh. And he opened it up. Center pedestal, there's probably about 50 cars in there, is a McLaren F1 sitting in the middle.
Right.
To the left is an F40. To the right is an F50.
Wow.
And that was my introduction into supercars.
Yeah.
I about fell over. I looked at him and I said, man, I'm glad I didn't judge you by the way you dress or your truck. We're laughing. We became really good friends. And he bought my ultimate car. My ultimate car is a Porsche 959.
Oh, yeah.
To this day, when I see one, the young me, the 18, 19-year-old me, that when that car came out, my heart skips a beat when I see one. I mean, I just
got one of those. He's in it a couple times, and car's in perfect shape.
So that's my Ferrari. That was, and I knew what an F40 was. I really hadn't been around an F50, at that time, and I was just blown away. And so last year or 2019, roll back forward, and we're on the green at 2018. We're on the green, and there's a McLaren F1 on the green at Quell. And I'm looking up. I'm walking all around this. Chris might not even heard that. And Diane comes walking up, and she can tell I'm emotionally attached to this car. And she goes, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, this is my first hypercar. Not this very car, but this was the car that really got me started into doing high-end cars."
Right.
So this lady walks up and she sees us admiring it, and she goes, "It's beautiful, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah, it is." And she goes, "It was my dream car. It was hers." And
wow.
Her husband walks up. We start talking, and I said, "How long have you owned it?" And she says, "I've owned it for about 21 years. We bought it from the original owner."
Wow.
It was that car. It was Carl Curtis's car that I'd worked on. It was the car that launched it. It was the very, very car that I'd worked on in Idaho over 20 years before that.
Wow. That car's worth a lot of money now.
Oh, that. Well, and the emotional value of it is, my point is here as a young man, I'd worked on that car. My point is that car is still going to look like that probably after I'm dead and gone. Probably after most of us listening to this are dead and gone.
Yeah.
So, you need to be proper with these cars.
Right.
You can't just jump in and do something foolish. You need to be proper. So what? I'll go into the next one, and then Chris will go to the net. That you go to the net. What's the most expensive Ferrari? The value. What's the most expensive one you've ever worked on?
Well, your audience might just have a heart attack when I tell them this, because it hasn't been publicly auctioned yet, because it's not in an auction from what I know. I had the pleasure of working on this specific car. It goes years back, and I remember the mechanic, again, talking about why I work with mechanics, because mechanics trust the detailer, because you see eye to eye and goes, "Hey, this is a very expensive car you're about to work on, but I don't want you to just think about the price. I just want you to do what you do best." Well, how much are we talking about? He goes, "Well, this car can be valued $100 million. And I said, "What?" And I said, "No way. People talk." And I said, you know, and then I would ask other car collectors, billionaires, people that can afford stuff. And I said, listen, have you heard of a car that can it be possible that this car is $100 million? And I was being surprised that these legitimate gentlemen, right, that wouldn't entertain the conversation and say, oh, no, you know, yeah, that car's 100. You know, they'll tell you straight out, that's all baloney. Don't believe that. Now I'm getting credibility from very well-known figures. And as a matter of fact, since you asked that question, which is going to be interesting, I don't know if you're going to see the book. You see this book?
Yeah.
All right, that's the car.
Oh, wow.
Now, and I'm going to show, it's on my Facebook page and other pages. Now, there you go. So that's a 275 GTBC Berlinetta Speciale, right? Well, that car was owned by Ferrari. It's a lightweight all aluminum. And Ferrari owned it and raced it in Le Mans and other races. And what people don't know, what's in this book, is that right where the nose is, where the prancing horse is, they made a hole at the racetrack. And then it wasn't big enough. It wasn't getting enough air. So then they drill another bigger hole, which I'm going to show it to you on the book so you can see what I'm talking about. I'll see if you can see it. I don't know how close I can show you. You see that?
Yeah. Yep, I got it.
Yeah. So, wait, let me see. Let me move this. Okay. That's the original car back in the 60s.
Oh, that's a big hole.
That's a big hole.
Now, it's amazing. If you look at the top part of where the car is, that's when it was smaller. So they had to make it larger. Now, just yesterday, I was on the phone with a friend of mine who's in the car business. And he was telling me about the owner. That car was owned by a very well-known person here in South Florida. He owns he died, rest in peace. And his name was Preston Henn. He owned a swap shop down here in Miami. I mean, not Miami, Fort Lauderdale. He has at the swap shop, which is a large flea market, he had just an area just for his exclusive cars, exotic cars, all kinds of stuff. So I was called to work on this car. And years ago, and I was called by the mechanic, and which, again, in this book, I had it signed. So in this book, over here, this mechanic, wait, let me see if I can put it there. This mechanic here, he was the master mechanic on the car. So he was chief mechanic, always on the car when the guy bought it. And then over here, after it was pre-sold. Ferrari sold the car after that, races and all that. Other people bought it. So he eventually picked up on the car. And then he had the car resprayed. So this is the painter. He signed it. He's still alive. And then some other mechanics up here. They're very well known here in South Florida. They're one of the best mechanics we have here, at least in this part of South Florida. His name is Tim Stanford. And then you got Al Roberts, which he is also a legend, as well as Tim. And these guys, has taught me, I can't even begin to explain how much stuff these guys teach me about authenticity about cars. And just yesterday, I was talking to someone I know, and I said, "Hey, man, has this car sold yet?" He goes, "Eddie, they've offered them $120 million, and they still haven't sold it." I go, he goes, "Have not sold the car." And I thought this was all a bunch of, it depends who you talk to. That car might be 30 million, 40 million. But the majority of the people that I speak with, which people who have a lot of credibility, they're not talking 30, 40, 50 million. They're talking over $100 million. And the owner has not even said, "Yeah, let's just sell the car."
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. So, Chris, why don't you ask the next two?
Well, first of all, very cool on the history of that stuff. The guys, there's been some comments here. The guys like hearing the historical stories on those cars. All the cars that you've worked on, how many of them have been award winners at the concourse and stuff?
How many? Well, I
Or have you lost
don't
track?
know an exact number, but there's been over 200, 300 cars. Because Cavallino's once a year, and it all depends how many we enter. And Cavallino Classic has changed a bit. Before, they used to give out like silver awards, platinos, gold, and platinum. So some of the clients will get silver, some will get gold and platinum. But if you figure, you know, every year my clients would get on a table with my clients at the award ceremony, they'd be around 10 to 15 awards. I mean, nice awards. It could be the Cup Award, Preservation Award. It could be just about anything. And I've kind of like counted over at least 200 at least awards, which they don't come to me. I mean, I've put a few pictures on my Facebook. I've been to my clients' homes and I've snapped some pictures. They've allowed me to. I have one particular guy. He's gotten like, I think he's up to 14 platinos, which is the highest award you can get at Cal. I even told him to retire the car. I said, dude, you know, it's like you're a champion all the time. It's like
How long have you been involved in that in that event?
Like 2 years right after I started detailing, because this has been going on for 30 years, right? So I just went to this year's Cavallino. It was the 30th anniversary.
Damn.
And I was already involved, and I got in at the right time, because the thing about Cavallino, just so your audience can understand, you can't show up there with modern cars.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be cars at least, I believe it's within 8 to 10 years old, or after 5 years old. But you can't just show there and change the stem cap of your car because you want a little prancing horse on it, or you want to put a Cavallino sticker on the fender. That's a point off, or at least a half a point, whatever the judge discrepancy is. So there's a lot of things from that. And I had to learn that way back then, that this has nothing to do with polishing the cars as much and shining them up. As a matter of fact, I learned very early on through judges and historians. They would come up to me and tell me straight out, to help me, to teach me, and said, don't polish this car. And I'm like, huh? He's telling me what to do? I don't get it. He goes, Eddie, listen, we're not saying it and to critique what you can do. The problem is we're seeing too many of these cars that they don't look anymore how they did 30 years ago. The paints are flat. The colors are changing. Because you get a Rosso Corsa color, or just an example, you start polishing a single stage paint from 30 years ago,
Amen.
the color starts getting a little orange. It doesn't get red no more. And then it goes from an orange peel to a flat, and some guys, let me wet sand, let me, correct. They're not even in our score sheets, in our scorecards. There's no such thing as swirls, holograms. That doesn't even exist there. And like I tell people, so and even if it did exist, what are they going to do on a rainy day?
Right.
Here's
the thing, and a lot of people don't think about it. Even on a modern day, a brand new paint. I'm looking at a brand new paint right now.
Right.
There's preservation, man. You only got so much healthy paint, and especially on something that is or is going to be a classic.
Right.
Why would you minimize the healthy paint, the healthy clear? I don't get it. This whole correction at all cost is both. Okay, you might not know it. I'm an old medic also, and
I know.
We had to take an oath, didn't we?
Yeah.
Do no harm, and you don't want. I always tell people, hey man, car detailing is just like running medic calls back in the day. Is that you show up and somebody's got a tummy ache. By the time you get them to the hospital, you don't want their arm to be broken, because you ducked them out of the green, Well, it's the same thing with detailing, man. They're coming to you to clean the car up. You don't want to deteriorate that paint so much at all costs. I'm going to make it perfect. I'm going to spend 72 hours and work on Christmas Eve all the way to Christmas Day so I can put that on Facebook, and for some stupid reason think that's fucking cool, and it's not, by the way. But I'm gonna take this paint down to nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna make it look amazing, dude. You just ruined the chances of this car becoming a long-term paint, original paint, 30, 40 years from now, because that paint system is going to fail because of you.
Yeah, we've actually seen, because the judges will put notes on their score sheets, and I don't know what happened to the people who took care of the car after that. I mean, it must have been like devastating for them to get that news once they got the report from the judges. But when they put a note down and said over polished, not because it was burned, let me get this straight. They were comparing the car's paint to another car's paint that was original, and they were telling the owner, listen, do you see here the difference? This paint, yours, is nowhere near how that car looked originally.
It's not error correct anymore.
And then what happens is people keep coming back and doing it again and again and again, and then the car looks, it just gets a sheen to it, a look to it, that when I see it, I know it's totally wrong.
It's like one of the Kardashians having another plastic surgery. Really, at some point, they just look all hunked up, man.
Right. Well, those cars, if you want to really keep them preserved, you got to do your homework. You got to really study them and say, should I? You got to know when not to use that machine. And let me tell you, I enjoy, if anything, I enjoy still to this day doing a lot of that old-fashioned handwork on cars. People, I've had detailers I've taught how to polish a car with your hand with very basic, non-aggressive products. So look, if you see this little stuff, use this. Don't use a machine, and trust me, that's not going to hurt the car. But if you're going to sit there with a machine and keep going at it, I said you're looking for trouble there. And
there's a time and place for everything, and we're getting to the point now with some of the values of these cars, as you mentioned. Yeah, you could actually, by trying to get that car's paint to perfection, you could actually be diminishing, hurting its chances of being worth more money.
Yeah, and not only the paints, I've also seen engine bays demolished. People use engine cleaners and all that stuff, and then they etch the wrinkle paints, they etch the cadmium plating, they go and they start etching the uprights, the calipers, all this stuff, the control arms. And another thing is there's a lot of markings on these old cars, and you got to keep an eye on all that. And you want to take that off, and using the wrong chemicals will just create a big problem. And putting the wrong chemicals on the car like that can also become very problematic too, especially if a car that's going to be painted later on for whatever reason, and you've got something on that paint that shouldn't be on that paint, and then the painter says, hey man, what happened? What did they put on this paint? We weren't planning on sanding more than what we needed to, and now it seems like we have a problem. So there's a lot to learn.
So Chris, I'm interested. I'm going to let you ask this last question related to cars, and then I've got one more for him. But I want you to ask this one.
Well, you were talking about you just mentioned paints, and I heard you bring up Rosso Corsa Red. So you have a favorite Ferrari color? Is it Rosso Corsa Red, and do you have one other than that?
Well, it's somebody that would see it would call it red, even though I have a couple colors I like. But there's one that came out that a client of mine put on his LaFerrari, and it was a color called Alfa Competizione Rosa. So in other words, the color is not quite red, but it's hard to. I have it on one of my Facebook pages, and it's even hard then to pick up on it. It's a toned down red, but it's got like a candy look to it, but it's not really red. And it was an interesting color because that color is just beautiful. When you see it in person, it's like, oh my goodness, this is not red. This is something else. What is this? And they had to get permission from Alfa Romeo to get that color on that car. and a couple other cars. It was very interesting. And then a few other cars eventually started rolling down that people like that color. Competizione, Alfa Competizione, very nice color, beautiful color. But other than that, I really like some cars in the yellow colors, which look very unique. In some, like Enzo's, I think, and Dino's, look very unique. And then black colors, they're okay in some old cars like the 330s and stuff like that. Very old, classy cars. I think they look very, very, very nice. I worked on one that belonged to Frank Sinatra's daughter, Nancy Sinatra, and they had a beautiful one. And it was all black with beautiful tan interior. And I was like, wow, this car just looks so freaking elegant, just the black on it. And so I don't know, red is always the same thing over and over and over. But they've been able to tweak some of the colors along the way. And it's not just that red we're always seeing, but that Alfa Competizione color is very, very unique. Not every car out there, and it's very expensive. I mean, the guy told me what he paid for that paint job from Ferrari, and I was like, what?
Wow.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of red and yellow on the vintage cars. I have to say though, on modern Ferraris,
Yeah.
stop me in my tracks when I see a blue one.
There's some interesting blue ones. From back then, there's some that are super awesome. I mean, there's so many old vintage cars with very unique colors. I can't remember the colors right now, but man, they're just drop dead gorgeous. And you see these kind of colors when you go to an event like Cavallino, and you go, wow, I didn't know this car was available back then. And you look at this color, and it blows you away. Some of these, wow, this existed back then? This color? Yeah, it did. It's just that nowadays, people have, I guess, more modernization. They can make the paints look a lot better and all that. Back then, it was lacquer.
Yeah.
Or Glazerite or Saatchi and things like that. So, or Glidden, stuff like that. And you never got to really see some of the lacquer finishes, what they truly look like, as they were hard to keep up with. Many other cars that I've worked on, you rarely see a lacquer finish that is still in pristine condition. It's very rare. It's cracking everywhere. Even though I have a client that owns an original lacquer finish on a car, and it belonged to Mario Andretti. And it's a 308. And it's a really cool looking car, and the owner decided to leave it all cracked, all the paint on it. And the paint's not falling off, but it's just interesting. That's what the paint would do.
Yeah, and pretty cool though.
Keep it original, so you just wipe the car and you're done. You don't have to do much.
So hey, real quick, so we got a wide range of people listening to us. So we'll just one small piece of advice that you'd like to give people, no matter if they're brand new, in business, or if they're more seasoned. What would that piece of advice be?
Man, I believe honesty is you got to be honest with people. I mean, period. Keep it real. You could probably get away with being dishonest, selling people what they really don't need. I'm not a believer in that. I don't have a problem whatsoever if in a month I've turned away 10 or 15 cars. I don't have a problem with that. Why? Because I don't believe that car needed what the person thought he needed. And not too long ago, I had a car where a gentleman with a Porsche just bought the car, and he said, and this has to do with the honesty. I started prepping the car, and I realized right away, I said, I think this car has ceramic coating on it. The car looked good. The car was I was doing some tests to kind of like rule out, is it coated or not? And the car was in such pristine condition, and the guy was already talking to me prior. I want to do a paint correction. I want to do this. I couldn't even find swirls on the car. I was there looking and everything, and I'm saying, sir, let's look at this car for what it is. I go, you bought an amazing car. You just bought an amazing car, and you're very fortunate to have me here to tell you the truth. You don't need a paint correction on this car, and less alone do you need any he thought it needed ceramic coating because he heard about it. And I said, the most this car needs is a basic car wash and a slap on of your favorite sealant or whatever, or just a maintenance spray or whatever, just to keep it. I go, what I would do is find out and this is interesting, when they sold you the car, can you find out from the previous owner if the car was coated? I would like for you to do that because that's important, because that way you can match up the maintenance spray from the company that did the ceramic coating. Oh, I'll do that. So he got on the phone the same day I left. He calls me back the next day and he goes, man, I'm glad you told me that. They actually are going to send me an email of the company that did the ceramic coating on it.
That's cool. Yeah, it's
and
good.
they told me what to use. So I could have been there just trying to make money, right? I said, oh yeah, sure, let's do a paint correction. You know, I gained a client, I gained this trust, and guess what? That's how I run my business. Just being honest and just, you know what? I always know that the good Lord always takes care of me, one way or another. I don't have to be like fishing in other ponds. There's a verse that I always used from the beginning. I remember when I first started. It was a Proverbs verse, 12:14. It says, delight. I mean, I was, wait, now I forgot because my head is going 100 miles an hour. It was, well, there was one that said, delight yourself in the Lord, he'll give you the desires of your heart. And Proverbs 12:14 says, from the fruit of his lips, a man is filled with good things as surely as the work of his hands rewards him. Mm-hmm. And I always kept that in the dashboard of my car, and I would read it every single day, every single day. Don't worry, you know, just delight yourself in the Lord, and he'll give you the desires of your heart. And I was always constantly just doing honest work.
Got to be honest. It's going to catch up with you don't. So, hey, buddy, how do people connect with you on social media? How do they find you on social media?
Well, for those who might not know, obviously I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, things like that. That's usually, I got a couple pages on Facebook, business page, personal page, and then Instagram, things like that. So,
right. Well, hey, I want to thank you for coming in with something that we really wanted. We want to thank you. We want to thank P&S Double Black for making this happen. Flex. We're going to be highlighting some of their tools too. And then make sure to like, make a comment, and subscribe below, and also send us your feedback on what you thought about this. Now, I've got a departing statement that I want to make real quick, just a little something, is that I'm going to ask anybody of faith is you got to keep our country in prayer. I don't think a lot of people realize, you know, the situation we're in, and it's pretty dire, if you ask me. If you're not a person of faith, we need a lot of warm thoughts, but more so right now between the prayers, remember that the power we gave to our representatives, that we gave it to them. They are not our leaders. They're our representatives, and we need to hold them accountable. And you need to put your damn phone down. You need to stop ordering cheap shit. You need to start taking and backing up American-made products. And you need to be careful of who you vote and who you put into office, because you know what? We can sit there and bitch, but we keep putting the same damn people in there, and we need to get them out. We need to hold up people accountable, because we're in deep shit. We're in deep trouble, and people don't realize it. What's gone down in the last 2 weeks is completely unacceptable in this country. And until all you guys put your damn phone down and watch what's going on and make a decision to remove people from power that are doing this crap, it's going to continue to happen. Also, I think it's really, I'm going to lay it out like this. It's time for us to get involved in local government. Is that we need to take and put bitter people in there, hold them accountable, and especially at our school boards. Is that if we don't balance this thing out, and our country is based off of balance. This isn't a Republican or a Democrat thing. This isn't a right or a left. This isn't a liberal or conservative. This is about the health of our damn country and where it's going. And it's in trouble. She's in trouble. And so with that, Eddie, thanks for coming in. Chris, always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. It was fun to chat about Ferraris and really getting into that niche with you.
It was.
Thank you for having me.
Well, hey, next time I'm down in Florida, buddy, want to hang out? Let's go hang out. We'd love to see your skinny ass again. All right, buddy. You take care, okay?
Thank you, guys.
Everybody, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.